Apple is an American software and hardware company founded in 1976 in Los Altos, California. It is well known for its founder, Steve Jobs, who is an icon in the world of technology and business, as well as for the iPhone, the MacBook, and of course, for the bitten Apple logo. It all started with Bill Fernandez, a user interface architect who became Apple Computer's first employee in 1977. Bill introduced 21-year-old Steve Wozniak to 16-year-old Steve Jobs in mid-1971, not knowing that both would enter into a business partnership later that year. Wozniak, a self-taught electronics engineer, began building blue boxes that allowed long-distance phone calls to be made free of charge. It was when Steve Jobs realized what a great invention Wozniak had created, that he decided to sell the blue boxes at a price of $150 each, about $782 today. Jobs told his biographer that if it hadn't been for Wozniak's blue boxes, there wouldn't have been an Apple. After a few years and several joint creations, they founded Apple in 1976, together with Ronald Waby, who designed the brand's first logo, which a couple of years later, between 1977 and 1998, was replaced, as according to Jobs, it was unnecessarily complex and archaic, so they hired Rob Janoff, who devised the first version of the logo we know today. In 1976, they created one of the first personal computers, the Apple I, the first Apple product. Although it was not that simple, Jobs had to sell his van and Wozniak his programmable calculator in order to make the prototype. After finishing the prototype, Steve Jobs decided to look for investors interested in the company to launch the Apple I. That's when he met Mike Markula, who decided to invest in the project, making the Apple I a resounding success, going on sale in July 1976, as an assembled circuit board with a retail price of $666.66. With the revenue generated, they created the Apple II, which was a monitor with color capability, something no other monitor could perform. According to Wozniak, Jobs came up with the name Apple Computer on his way back from Robert Friedland's All One Farm in Oregon. Jobs told Walter Isaacson that he was on one of his fruity diets when he conceived the name and thought it sounded fun, energetic and not intimidating, plus it would put them ahead of Atari in the phone book. The two Steves traveled to the Homebrew Computer Club to show off the Apple I. There was Paul Tell, who operated the Byte Shop chain of computer shops. He was impressed by the young men and extended his card to them so they could keep in touch. This prompted Jobs to visit him at his shop the next day, in Mountain View, to sell him the bare circuit boards for the Apple I. Tell said he was only interested in buying the machine fully assembled, making it clear that he would order 50 assembled computers and pay $500 each on delivery, equivalent to $2,300 in 2022. That's when the two Steves and their small team spent day and night building the computers. The next day they took the computers to Tell, so he was surprised to receive a batch of assembled circuit boards, as he was expecting computers complete with case, monitor, and keyboard. However, he ended up paying for them. They eventually sold around 200 units of the Apple I, with some features such as the use of a TV screen, which was unusual as machines at the time had no screen at all. Its text was displayed at 60 characters per second, faster than the teleprinters of contemporary machines of the time. The machine was a masterpiece, used fewer parts than any other, and earned Wozniak his reputation as a designer. Jobs subsequently sought investors to expand the business, although banks refused to lend him money as the idea of a personal computer seemed absurd at the time. It was not until August 1976 that Jobs contacted his former boss at Atari, Nolan Bushnell, who recommended that he seek out Don Valentine, founder of Sequoia Capital. Valentine was not interested in funding Apple, but introduced him to Mike Markula, a millionaire who had worked for him at Fairchild Semiconductor. Markula was immediately interested in what Steve Jobs was planning, so he became an angel investor, investing $92,000. $479,900.46 in 2022, plus securing a line of credit at Bank of America for $250,000, a little more than $1,200,000 in 2022, all in exchange for a one-third stake in Apple. Finally, Apple Computer Incorporated was incorporated in 1977. and in 1980 the Apple III was introduced, a historic failure. However, Apple had other more interesting projects to launch, such as Lisa and Macintosh. In December of the same year, Apple went public, which increased the brand's equity. In 1993 the Lisa computer goes on sale. It was the first personal computer to include a mouse and graphical interface, and a year later, the Macintosh was released, a computer that was initially successful but came to a quick end. Later in 1985, Jobs resigned from Apple due to board problems, and founded Next Inc. Jobs' absence at Apple led to a frightening lack of innovation, so in 1997 he was asked to return, and in 1999, 2 years after his return, the iMac was released, a historic success. In 2001, the brand introduced the iPod, a very innovative product that stood out in the technology and music industry, as it was a 5GB music player capable of storing up to 1,000 songs, which inspired the launch of the iPod mini. Discontinued, the iPod Touch, the Shuffle, discontinued, the iPod Classic, discontinued, the Nano, discontinued, the iPhone and the iPad. In addition to this, they launched the MacBook, Apple's most iconic laptop, which due to its success later launched the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. Jobs said the company's share of the entire portable music device market was 76%. The iPod gave a huge boost to Apple's financial results. In the quarter ending March 26, 2005, Apple earned $290 million, 34 cents per share, on sales of $3.24 billion. And the year before, in the same quarter, Apple earned $46 million, 6 cents per share, on revenue of $1.9 billion. Finally, in June 2020, at the first Apple Worldwide Developers Conference, CEO Tim Cook announced the transition from Intel processors to Apple Silicon in Macs. In September 2020, the iPhone 12, 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max were introduced, the first iPhones to support 5G. In November 2020, the first Macs with Apple Silicon were launched. The Mac Mini, MacBook Air and MacBook Pro featured Apple's M1 chip, based on its previous chip, the A14 Bionic. And over the past few years, Apple has developed new technologies for the iPhone, most notably in its digital camera. In addition, we know that Apple is seriously working on developing cars. Despite the company's hermetism, its project is a secret known by many, as it has hired a senior Lamborghini executive, according to Bloomberg. This is Luigi Taraborelli, who for the past 2 decades has been responsible for the chassis and aerodynamics of the models developed by the Italian brand. In 2021, they contacted Ulrich Kranz, former head of electric cars at BMW. According to Bloomberg, the project has hundreds of engineers from Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, Aston Martin, McLaren, Porsche and Waymo, a developer of autonomous vehicles belonging to the Alphabet conglomerate. What other surprises will the Cupertino-based technology company bring us?